Good morning. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining me for yoga today. We'll do our usual, which is sequence of postures that'll take about 30 minutes, and we'll start with a brief meditation, and we'll end with Shavasana. So let's all get into our comfortable seats on our mat, wherever you're participating from. And so we'll start by finding that comfortable position so that we can bring our awareness away from any discomfort or maybe even aches and pains. And we'll bring our awareness inward. So if it's comfortable for you, you can close your eyes here, or maybe there's just a soft gaze at some point of focus in front of you on the floor maybe. And the hands can rest comfortably in the lap or on the thighs. The spine is nice and straight. And the shoulders are relaxed and away from the ears. The chin is slightly downward, bringing length to the back of the neck. The crown of the head is pulling up gently towards the sky. And for just a moment, notice if there are any areas where you're holding tension. Maybe behind the eyes or in the jaw. If you find some tension, try to let that tension go. It's not serving us well right now. Soften those muscles. And we'll simply turn our awareness to the breath for the next few breaths. Noticing the inhale and the exhale. Maybe even counting the breath if that helps. And then I invite you to set an intention for your practice today. You might set the intention to be fully present for the next 30 minutes or so, or to show yourself a little compassion, patience. Whatever your intention is, I invite you to bring it to mind and maybe even say it silently in your head. And then when you're ready, the eyes can gently open, and we'll start in our seated position. We'll bring the right hand to the outside of the right hip. The left hand can simply float up towards the sky, and we'll take a nice gentle side bend towards the right here. Maybe the eyes stay closed for these first few postures. Breathing in, and then letting the breath go. We'll return to center, and we'll simply take a side bend to the other side. So now the left hand comes to the outside of the left hip, and the right hand can float up towards the sky, side bend towards the left. Breathing in and breathing out. And then we'll return to center, and we'll simply walk the hands forward, creating a nice stretch in the back. And when you feel that stretch, that's where you stop. And we'll let the head hang heavy here. You might even visualize that you're sending the breath to those areas of the body where you need it most this morning. And then we'll return upright. And now we'll take the hands and we'll point the fingers towards the hips. We're opening the chest towards the front of the room, or maybe even towards the ceiling here. A nice counter pose for any time that you've spent in a hunched over position over a keyboard or a laptop or a phone or whatever it is you're using. And then we can return upright and we'll simply come into our tabletop. So in our tabletop position, we can take all sorts of movements that might feel good. We can take some cats and cows where we're rounding the back and then letting the belly fall towards the ground. Maybe we peek over the right shoulder towards the right hip. And then we can peek over the left shoulder towards the left hip. And then let's bring our knees wide here, and we're going to simply sink back into our child's pose for just a few moments, showing our bodies some kindness here. Notice if you feel a nice stretch in the lower back. And then we'll push back up to our tabletop. And we're going to take our right hand and point it towards the front of the room. We'll take our left foot and bring it behind us. And we can either stay right here or maybe the left foot floats up off the mat. And we'll hold here for the count of 3, 2, and 1. Hand returns to mat, knee returns to mat. And then we're going to simply take that on the other side. So now the left hand can point forward, the right foot comes behind us, holding here, or maybe the right foot floats up off the mat. And feel that nice, strong line of energy from the back heel all the way to the tips of the fingers. Holding for 2 more breaths. And then we'll return the hand and the knee to the mat. We'll tuck the toes, hips will lift, and we're in our first downward facing dog. It's always good to take it a little easy on our first downward dog here. Once again, showing yourself some kindness, patience. We might pedal out the feet. And then we can rise up onto our tiptoes and send the heels off to the right, creating a stretch in the left side body. Looks like my cat has joined me for yoga this morning. And we'll rise back up to center, and then we'll send the heels off to the left, creating a nice stretch in the right side body. Breathing in and breathing out. And then we'll return the heels to center, and we'll simply walk the feet up to meet the hands at the front of the mat. And we'll be in a forward fold here. We can come into a rag doll by holding on to our elbows here. Let the head hang heavy, and there can be a nice bend in the knees as we're getting started. Maybe you even sway from side to side, releasing the muscles of the back. And then for a deeper forward fold, we can clasp the hands behind the lower back, or maybe we just reach around for our elbows. If the hands are clasped, we can let the hands float away from the body, creating a stretch in the shoulders and the upper back. We'll let the hands return down, and we'll slowly slinky roll up to a standing position, inhaling the hands overhead, exhaling the hands to heart center. And then let's take the hands and clasp them together, and we'll simply push the hands in front of us and arch the back while we look down at the floor. And then we'll let the hands float up towards the sky, And we'll start here with a side bend towards the right, keeping the hands clasped. Not collapsing into the right side body, but growing a little taller with each inhale, and maybe bending just a bit further with each exhale. Notice if the shoulders have hunched up by the ears. If they have, relax them down. And then we'll return to center and take a side bend to the other side. Once again, we're not collapsing into the left side, but growing taller and bending just a little further. And then for another chest opener, let's bring the hands down. I'm going to turn to the side, and you can place the hands on your lower back here. Bring the shoulders away from the ears, and we'll take a gentle back bend. Breathing in and breathing out. You might even feel a little bit of a stretch here in the wrist or the forearm. And then we'll take sun salutation A. So we'll inhale, arms to rise. Exhale into a forward fold. Inhale to a halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Take another sun salutation like that. Inhaling, arms to rise. Exhaling, hands to the center of the chest. Inhaling, arms to rise. Exhale into that forward fold. Inhale into a flat back. Exhale, forward fold. Now here we can have a nice bend in the knees as we wiggle the feet a little closer together. Maybe the big toes are even touching. The knees will bend as we inhale the hands above and we come into our chair posture. Notice if those shoulders are hunching up, bring them back down. Firing up the core here. Breathing into the posture. One more breath. And then we bring the hands to the center of the chest. And we'll take a twist over towards the left. So we're hooking that right elbow to the outside of the left knee. And we can either stay right here or maybe the hands separate. We'll return back to center. Bring the hands back up towards the sky for just a breath. As we exhale, the hands come back to the center of the chest, and we're going to take a twist in the other direction. So now the left elbow hooks outside of the right knee, and then we can simply let the hands come apart if that's part of your practice, or you can stay right where you are. Breathing in and breathing out. Hands come back together at the center of the chest, and then we'll simply exhale into a forward fold. Inhale into a halfway lift. Hands come down to the mat. We'll step the left foot back, step the right foot back, and we're in our high plank. And let's hold it here for 3 breaths. 3, 2, and 1. And we'll slowly lower all the way down to the mat. The hands are underneath the shoulders, and we'll come into a baby cobra. So just lifting up just a bit till we feel a stretch in the lower back. Maybe we breathe into that stretch. Feel where all of the contact points are making contact with the mat all the way down to the tops of the feet. And then we'll lower all the way down to the mat. And push back up into our downward facing dog. Maybe some additional little movements here. And then we'll inhale the right leg to lift, and we'll open the hip up into our 3-legged dog. Maybe you make some small circles here with your ankle. In one direction, and then in the other. And then we'll come into our warrior 1 on the right-hand side. So we're placing the right foot between the hands. The back heel comes down. Hands are alongside the body. And as we inhale, we'll lift the hands up towards the sky. Breathing into this posture. Feeling the strength of both legs as they support you here. Maybe you even lift up all 10 toes and then place them back down on the mat. For extra balance, you can pick a spot just a few feet in front of you on the floor to focus on. And then we can come into our humble warrior. You can either clasp onto your elbows behind your back, or maybe the hands come together, and then we can hinge at the hips as we come into the front, the inseam of that front leg. Only going as far as feels good for you. Breathing in, and then breathing out. And then we can bring the left hand to the inside of the right foot. The back heel comes up. Maybe you even wiggle it back as we come into our twist. Right hand comes down to the mat. The back heel comes down, and we're going to spin up into our warrior two. So notice for a moment where all of your body parts are. Make any adjustments as needed. The arms should be nice and level, the front knee above the front ankle. And when you've got everything just where it should be and you feel nice and strong in this posture, you can bring your gaze over that front right hand. Bringing your attention to the breath. And then we'll reverse for just a breath. Hands come down to the mat. Right foot meets the left. You can either take a chaturanga here, which is pushing down and then forward and then back, or you can just push into your downward dog. Left leg lifts, and let's open up the hip on the left-hand side, making small circles with that left ankle, one direction, and then in the other. And we'll come into our warrior one on the left-hand side. Once again, hands can come alongside the body, and then we'll inhale the arms to rise. Make sure the shoulders are not hunched up by the ears. Notice if there are other areas where maybe you're holding tension where you can let it go. Simply breathe here. And then to come into our humble warrior, you can either clasp onto the elbows, or maybe clasp the hands behind the lower back. Hinge at the hips to bring your torso to the inseam of that left pant leg. Stopping when you feel that stretch. And then to come into our twist, we'll take the right hand, place it to the inside of the left foot. The back heel comes up, and we'll bring the left hand up towards the sky. Feeling that line of energy from the bottom right hand all the way up to the top of the left tippy fingers. The left hand can come down to the mat. The back heel comes down, and we'll spin up into our warrior two. Once again, taking any adjustments as needed here. Maybe you need to wiggle one of your feet in one direction. Once you've got it, simply bring your gaze over the left front fingers. And just reside in the strength of this position. You could lift up all 10 toes and place them back down on the mat. And then we'll reverse for just a breath and windmill the hands down to the mat. The left foot meets the right. We can either take another chaturanga or the hips simply lift up towards the sky. This time the right foot lifts, and we'll come into our low lunge on the right-hand side. So the back knee can come down. And we can shift our weight just a bit forward until we feel it right here in our hip flexor. Stop right there. And then we can once again bring the hands alongside the body and then inhale them overhead. We'll bring the hands down to the mat, and we'll come into our halfway split. You might need to wiggle your front heel forward just a bit. We want to have the hips just above that back knee. There can be a nice bend in the knee if that feels better for you as we take a fold over that front leg. And then we're going to swing the right leg around so that we're in our tabletop. We're going to simply tuck the toes and let the hips lift as we come into our downward dog again. This time we'll come into a low lunge on the left-hand side. So once again, in a low lunge, the back knee comes down. And we're going to shift our weight forward until we feel that stretch. Bring the hands alongside the body and inhale the arms to rise. Opening the chest towards the front of the room. Noticing where your body comes into contact with the floor. From the front foot all the way to the top of the back foot. And then we'll bring the hands down to the mat, shift our weight back to come into our halfway split, and maybe we need to wiggle that front heel forward just a bit. There can be a bend in the knee, of course, as we bend over that front leg. We'll swing the left leg around so that we're in our tabletop. And we're going to come into a tabletop twist, one of my favorite postures, by inhaling the right hand up towards the sky, and threading it underneath that left arm. The front arm can either stay where it is, or maybe we wrap it around the back, whatever is most comfortable for you. And maybe we close our eyes here. We can push back up to our tabletop position. This time we'll take a tabletop twist on the left-hand side, lifting the left hand up towards the sky and threading it underneath the right arm. Taking whatever variation with the front arm that you took on the other side. We'll return back up to our tabletop, and to come into an inchworm, we're simply going to walk our hands forward, keeping the hips where they are, so they should remain stacked on top of the knees. And then either the forehead or the chin can come down and make contact with the mat. And there can be a nice bend in the elbow to help with the shoulders if you're experiencing any discomfort there. And then to come into our Sphinx pose, we'll simply shift our weight forwards. Again, making some minor adjustments here to come into this position. The shoulders are stacked above the elbows. The fingers are pointing forward. And we're opening the chest towards the front of the room. Notice if the shoulders are hunched up. Try to keep them away from the ears here. This is an active posture. We're not just sitting on the beach with a magazine. Well, that sounds pretty good right now. Breathing into this stretch. And then we'll come all the way down, bringing one cheek down to the mat. Maybe you switch sides and now the other cheek comes down to the mat. And then we'll push up into one more back bend. Either you can come back into the Sphinx, or maybe you come into a cobra by placing the hands underneath the shoulders. You could even bring your feet a little bit further apart as you push up, keeping the shoulders away from the ears and stopping when you feel that nice stretch in the back. And then we'll push back down to the mat, and we're going to simply roll onto our backs here. The knees are bent. We're going to take a figure four, actually a reverse figure four here, by placing the right ankle above the left knee and then taking our hands and threading them through that space that we've created, clasping them behind the left thigh. Maybe the right elbow even gently pushes to the inside of the right thigh to create a nice stretch in the hip, nice hip opening position. And maybe you even sort of sway from side to side here. So much is going on in this position. Maybe you flex your feet. Notice how that feels different. And then we'll bring the left foot back to the mat, and we're simply going to take a reverse figure four on the other side. So now the left ankle comes to the top of the right knee, and we'll thread our hands through the space that we've created, clasping onto the back of the right thigh, and then pulling that right thigh towards our chest, stopping when we feel the stretch. Maybe you use the left elbow to gently press away the left thigh. Maybe you sway from side to side. Maybe you flex your feet. Just noticing how each of these movements changes the stretch, changes where you feel it. And then we can return the feet back down to the mat. We're going to hug the right knee into the chest as the left leg goes long. And we're going to send that right knee across the body. The right arm comes out from the body, and our gaze can be over that right hand. We'll return to center here, and we'll hug the left knee into the chest. We'll send the left knee across the body as the left arm comes out, and our gaze can be over that left hand, or maybe we close our eyes now. We'll return to center and take any last adjustments or postures that you feel you need before we come into Shavasana, or maybe you just come right into Shavasana. So the legs are out straight. Maybe there's some space between the feet. The arms are alongside the body with the palms facing upward. And we can close our eyes here. And simply notice. Notice the sensations that you're feeling as a result of having taken these postures this morning. And maybe imagine that the breath helps to circulate those feelings of positivity, maybe a sense of peace and calm all throughout the body. Maybe the breath begins to deepen. Breathing in and letting it go. You might start to invite some small movements back into your body, moving your fingers and your toes. And then keeping the eyes closed, you can roll onto one side here. And then when you're ready, we can push up into a seated position. And I invite you to bring back to mind the intention that you set at the beginning of our practice today. And maybe you set the intention to carry that through the rest of this day, or maybe into the days ahead. And with that in mind, we can slowly open our eyes and return to the room where we are, turn to each other's virtual company here. So thank you all for joining me for yoga this morning. I hope you have a great weekend, and I hope to see you next week.